The first day of school always carried a certain tension, but for Lauren Bennett, it wasn't nerves. It was focus. At 29, Miss Bennett stepped through the wide glass doors of Westbrook High with a calm smile and a black leather bag tucked neatly under one arm. Her heels clicked steadily against the polished floor as students rushed past her, backpacks swinging, voices bouncing down the hallway in a chaotic blend of Monday complaints and summer gossip. She was the new English teacher. Young, confident, quiet. Some saw her and smiled politely. Others barely noticed. But the seniors? They noticed. Especially Troy Mitchell. Troy was the kind of student every teacher in the building dreaded. Captain of the lacrosse team, 6 feet 3 inches, charming when he wanted to be, and cruel when he didn't. His crew followed him everywhere. Jake, the loud one. Mason, the sneaky one. And the rest who just liked being on the winning side of fear. Their last English teacher had quit mid-semester. Rumor had it she cried in the principal's office after Troy accidentally spilled coffee on her laptop twice. So when Troy saw Miss Bennett walk into room 214 for the first time, he smirked. Fresh meat, he muttered to Mason. She won't last a month. But Lauren had seen that look before. The smug eyes of someone used to winning with intimidation. She'd seen it in Taekwondo tournaments, in rough gyms back in Detroit, even on the faces of men who underestimated her when she walked home late from night school. What Troy didn't know was that Lauren had trained for 15 years in martial arts. Not for glory, not for show, but because strength, to her, was silent discipline. As she stood at the front of the room, arranging a copy of Mice and Men beside a succulent she brought from home, the bell rang. Students shuffled in, some quiet, some loud, some looking curious, some looking for weakness. Troy and his friends took their spots in the back row, laughing like they owned the place. Lauren simply greeted each student by name, voice warm but controlled. Good morning, she said. I'm Miss Bennett. And this is going to be a very different kind of year. The class quieted just enough for everyone to hear her, including the ones who planned to break her. What they didn't know was that Miss Bennett didn't bend. She redirected. And Westbrook High was about to learn that the hard way. By the end of the first week, Miss Lauren Bennett had already become the center of Westbrook High's gossip vine. Some students found her too calm. Others admired her quiet control. But Troy Mitchell? He was bored. And when Troy got bored, he became dangerous. He started with small things. First, it was talking while she taught. Low, strategic whispers with just enough volume to distract. Then came the innocent questions that were really digs. Miss Bennett, are you always this serious? Or, do you actually like any of these books? Or are we just pretending literature matters? Lauren never flinched. She'd answer the questions with thoughtful replies that made the rest of the class pause. She never raised her voice, never let irritation leak into her tone. But she was taking mental notes. Every move, every player, every dynamic. Troy escalated. One morning, she found her classroom clock missing. The next, her chair legs were unscrewed, and she nearly fell when she sat down. He even forged a fake parent complaint email, attempting to stir up trouble with the administration. But Lauren knew how to fight a long game. Every incident was logged, every prank documented, every pattern tracked. She also knew how to engage the rest of her class. The quiet ones, the overlooked ones, the students who wanted to learn but had spent years tiptoeing around Troy and his gang. One of them was Alicia Kim, a shy junior who had barely spoken in her previous classes. Lauren saw something in her, a spark, and gave her small, intentional opportunities to shine. A poetry reading assignment, a thoughtful question in front of the class. Gradually, Alicia's voice began to return. The more the class responded to Lauren's teaching, the more Troy pushed. He couldn't stand being irrelevant. Then came Friday's essay assignment. Write about a time you witnessed courage and how it changed your perspective. When Lauren handed out the prompt, Troy raised his hand. Can we write about fictional courage? Like, I don't know, a teacher who survives a week at Westbrook without crying. The room tensed. Lauren looked up from her desk, expression unreadable. Only if it's well written, she replied, and moved on. Some students giggled. Others looked uncomfortable. But Lauren wasn't rattled. She wasn't afraid. What Troy didn't understand, not yet, was that every insult, every push, every joke, was just helping her build momentum. She didn't need to fight back to win. She needed to wait for the moment when he'd overplay his hand. And when that moment came, she would be ready. It started with a rumor. Monday morning, the whispers hit Lauren's classroom before the bell. Troy Mitchell had bet $50 that he could make Miss Bennett cry by the end of the week. He even wrote it in Sharpie on the back of a textbook and passed it around like a trophy. By Tuesday, students weren't laughing. They were watching. Lauren didn't need to hear the details. She could feel it. The energy shifted. Every eye carried expectation. Her classroom was no longer a place of learning. It was a stage. Troy planned his show for Friday. That morning, he was quiet. Too quiet. He nodded at Lauren with a fake grin when she greeted him at the door. He slid into his seat and pulled out a pristine copy of The Great Gatsby, acting the perfect student. For the first 10 minutes, nothing seemed off. Lauren began the lecture, walking between rows, asking questions, making eye contact, connecting. Then came the moment. Troy raised his hand. "Yes, Troy? I was wondering," he said, voice smooth, "if you'd mind a quick demonstration. You know, something educational. For the class." Lauren tilted her head slightly. "What kind of demonstration?" He stood, stepped out from his desk. "You said on Monday that conflict reveals character, right? So I thought we could act out a scene, something dramatic. Maybe a confrontation." Murmurs broke out. Several students took out their phones, pretending not to hit record. Lauren said nothing. She knew a challenge when she saw it. Troy stepped closer. "Come on, Miss Bennett. Just for fun. You be the teacher who thinks she can handle it all. I'll be reality." The room tightened like a held breath. Lauren smiled softly. "All right, let's try." The air shifted. Troy's smirk widened as he walked up to her. He towered over her by a full foot. "Here's the scene," he said. "You're teaching. I interrupt. You try to keep control. You're losing. I get closer. You." He moved forward suddenly, just a step too close. Too fast. Phones were up now. Troy leaned in, as if to whisper something cruel. But that's when it happened. Lauren moved. Not with aggression. Not with panic. But with precision. She turned slightly, shifted her weight, and with a smooth, practiced motion, stepped to the side, guiding Troy's shoulder gently with her palm and redirecting him toward his own desk. It was effortless, graceful, almost like a dance. Troy stumbled backward and sat down, hard. The class gasped. He blinked in confusion. "What?" Lauren's voice was steady, calm. "Conflict reveals character, Mr. Mitchell. But so does control." Silence. Phone stopped recording. Lauren returned to the front of the class and picked up her book like nothing had happened. "Let's continue," she said. Chapter 5, where Gatsby loses control chasing something that was never real. The students stared, stunned. Alicia Kim was the first to smile. Then more followed. Something had shifted, not just in the room, but in the power structure of the school itself. Troy didn't say a word for the rest of the class. But the real moment came later. After the bell rang, as students filed out buzzing, laughing, whispering, Alicia stayed behind. "You didn't hurt him," she said quietly. Lauren looked up. "That wasn't the point." Alicia nodded slowly. I want to try out for the debate team." Lauren smiled. "You should." Behind them, Troy lingered by the door. He looked at Lauren, eyes narrowed, pride wounded. But there was something else there now. Understanding. Respect. He didn't say a word. He just turned and walked away. And from that moment forward, the game changed. Lauren Bennett wasn't the teacher who could be broken. She was the teacher who reminded them all. Sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't raise their voice. By Monday morning, the video had made its rounds. No dramatic takedowns. No shouting. No violence. Just a 5-second clip of Troy Mitchell, the school's untouchable troublemaker, being effortlessly redirected back to his seat by Miss Lauren Bennett, a teacher no one had expected to last more than a month. And yet somehow, it was everywhere. It wasn't viral in the typical sense, it wasn't trending online. But within the walls of Westbrook High, it was gospel, passed from phone to phone, replayed over lunch, whispered about in the hallways. Did you see her move? She didn't even flinch. She could have taken him down, but she didn't. She chose not to. For the first time in a long time, the school was talking, not about who got suspended or who humiliated a teacher, but about a lesson in restraint, in strength, in dignity. And no one was more aware of the shift than Troy himself. On Tuesday, he showed up to class 5 minutes early. No entourage, no smirk. He sat in the second row and opened his notebook before the bell rang. Lauren didn't acknowledge the change, not directly. But she noticed. And so did everyone else. That week, Other students began to show up early too. Assignments came in more complete. Hands went up during discussions. The energy had changed. It was no longer about dominance. It was about engagement. Even Principal Marquez called her in that Friday. "I've had 6 parents email me this week," he said, leaning back in his chair. "All of them are saying the same thing. Something's changed in room 214. Lauren stayed quiet. He raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to tell me what happened, are you?" She smiled politely. "Just a very teachable moment, sir." Outside the office, Alicia Kim waited by the door with a permission slip in hand. It was for the speech and debate team tryouts. Lauren signed it without a word, and Alicia gave a small, proud nod before walking away. Later that day, during a passing period, Troy lingered by the classroom door after everyone else had gone. He didn't make eye contact. "I know I crossed the line," he said quietly. "I used to think teachers were either weak or out to get us." Lauren didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was soft. "We're not here to fight you, Troy. We're here to believe in you, until you learn how to do it yourself." For the first time since she'd arrived at Westbrook, Troy had no comeback. He just nodded once and left. Lauren closed the door behind him and leaned against the frame for a moment, breathing in the silence. The storm had passed, but something stronger had taken its place. Weeks passed. The buzz faded, the phones moved on, and the school returned to its usual rhythm. But something had undeniably changed. Room 214 became different. It wasn't about fear or silence anymore. It became a space where students felt seen. Even the quiet ones, even the ones like Alicia Kim, who now led debates with steady confidence. Even the ones like Eli Sanders, a senior who used to doodle instead of write, but now turned in short stories that Lauren stayed late to read. Lauren Bennett never asked for praise. She didn't hang certificates on the wall or share war stories in the teacher's lounge. But her reputation traveled fast, not because of what she did to Troy Mitchell, but because of what she didn't. She hadn't embarrassed him. She hadn't sought revenge. She'd simply stood her ground, quietly, with the kind of power that didn't need to shout to be heard. Even Troy, once the symbol of disruption, had shifted. He wasn't perfect, but he was present. He listened. He even turned in his essay a day early, titled, "Strength is Silent." Lauren read it in her apartment late one night, sipping tea. It wasn't polished, but it was real, and it was the first time he'd written more than 2 paragraphs. At the bottom, he'd left a note. "Thanks for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." She didn't cry. She just smiled, turned off the lamp, and let the stillness settle around her. Underscore. In the end, Lauren Bennett didn't just teach English. She taught something more valuable. That respect doesn't come from authority, it comes from character. And that sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should listen to most.